But yeah, this is a story of Brook. Brook the skeleton. It all started like, man, 50 years ago, 52 years ago. Brook was a musician on a crew called the Rumbar Pirates. And they were running around the world. He was the musician and he was having fun. However, one day they come across a well. Its name was Laboon. It was a baby well at the time. See, this little baby had been separated from its, home and other things, and they were like, okay, we have to, make sure that this little, well is cool because it's like following us around. They're like, Captain, this well is still like following us around. You gotta make sure we take care of it. And they're like, all right, yeah. So that happened. And they were like, singing to it. And, Bink Sake was a song that they sang a lot. But, like I said, they were pirates. So they stuck around for a while. Then, the balloon got left at the reverse mountain. They said, we'll see you when we come back around. So they were going to, like, go the whole way around the world and then come back and see him. However, things didn't go according to plan. Along the way, Brook, like his whole crew, like started getting sick. Like scurvy disease or something like that. They started dying off. And Brook had ate a devil fruit. However, they didn't know what the fuck it like did. So he was like, this devil fruit, I don't know. You know, he would come to find out later on, because once he was like the last one left, because he died too. He ended up dying. However, his devil fruit's called the revive fruit. So he has recoup. Rook essentially has bounce back. Recoup. Right, the only person, who has that shit more than fucking Marco the Phoenix is Brook. Because he ate that revive fruit. And he was revived. When he was revived, he was just drifting out at sea. And his like body decayed away. Became a skeleton. He was able to like, make sure his, or well, he was able to he was staying there he was there for a while basically. This boy. Not even this old man was there for a while. Just drifting away. All alone, playing his piano and shit. Then one day, the Thriller Bark Pirates show up. And Gecko Warrior steals his shadow. And when he had his shadow stolen, he he come to find out something. One, that his shadow was put inside of a dead zombie called Ryuma, and he was like basically revived as a zombie through his shadow. The next thing that happened was when your shadow was taken, you step out into the light, you're gonna disintegrate. You're gonna like you know, be vanquished, vaporized. You know, you're gone, turned to dust without your shadow. So he had to live in the shadows for he had to live in the dark near Thriller Bark, and he was there until the Shriots found him. Luffy found him, and he was like, "Oh my God, this is a skeleton. This guy is cool. I want him on the crew. He sings music and he talks like very weird." But he showed them that he didn't have a reflection anymore because his shadow was taken, and they were like, he was like, Gecko Moria is the one who stole my shadow, and I want to get it back. They were like, okay, we'll help you get it back. So when he goes on the island with the Straw Hats this time, he finds Ryuma, and he's like, damn, I have to be able to defeat you and get my shadow back. Because, like, his shadow was in control of Ryuma's body, basically. And he's like, I can get it from you. And he's like, the shadow's like, not likely. And, rightfully so, because guess what? It was Ryuma, the sword god. So he knew he had a fight on his hands, and they were fighting against each other. But Brook was not coming out on top. He didn't come out on top. And then Frankie was there, and he was like, damn, you lost. And he's like, yeah, of course I did. Um, this guy is not, scrub. Then Zoro shows up. Then Brook is watching Zoro and him fight. Zoro eventually beats Ryuma, and then Brook gets his shadow back. Brook gets his shadow back. He says, cool. Now I'll help you guys defeat Mori and Oars. Because he got his shadow taken again because he took everybody's shadow. And that was after, Oars got taken down. Mori, he absorbed all the shadows on the island and he became a big monster. And then Luffy had to, put him down. After that happened, Kuma showed up. When Kuma showed up, he let out Ursa Shock and everybody was, not passed out except Sandy and Zoro. And Brook, woke up the next day. He was playing music for everybody who survived the Moria attack. And he was like, you know what? I don't want to be lonely anymore. I'll join you guys. And he was like, cool. Now we have music. And you know how Luffy always wanted a musician? Like, always, like, at the beginning of the season, he was like, we gotta get a musician. And they're like, no, man. He finally got his musician. Then they went to Sabaudi. And Sabaudi, Brook was there. He went with them to, the slave auction to try to save Kami. And Kami, was, about to get auction off, and then, Rayleigh pulled up, and then Luffy hit St. Charles. Then they left with Rayleigh back to his place, the Shaki's bar, and they learned about, all that shit. Gold Roger, Rayleigh being his right hand man, that they found the One Piece and all that. But then after that, they go on. Kuma shows up, and Brook gets sent away, trying to defend Chopper. protect him. You know, when Brook gets shot off, he gets shot off into a this cult that worships the devil. And then when Brook got there, he was inside of the like the cult members were like surrounding him because they like made like the little like you know devilish satanic symbols on the ground, and then he was there in the middle, and they were like, "Oh my God, we summoned him." And they were like, he was like, he kind of played the part and whatever. And eventually, he found out that Luffy didn't want to like see him until 2 years later. And then 2 years later, he was known as the Soul King. See, he'd gained a following, being a musician. That's what happened to Brook. Soul King Brook. Did that. Left with his crew though. He was like, "Hey man, I was cool for being a superstar, musician, but I have to get back to being a musician for my captain, because I'm a straw hat, so I have to go." And he left, and he went with them to Fishing Island. And Fishing Island, he fought a guy who could go invisible. This little creature who thought he could sneak one on him. Brook used the aeronaut slash and cut him down. Then after they were done at Fishman Island, they got to Punk Hazard, and then Punk Hazard, Brook was kind of just there along for the ride, and he helped the children escape the clutches of, oh my God, that bitch called Caesar Clown. And that's basically what he did there. He was support. Brook is like, mm, he's the sixth most powerful straw hat on the crew, if you ask me. But he did stay on the ship at Dressrosa. He was staying on the ship when they got to Dressrosa. He was just there to defend. He was the only one there with like any real like abilities. It was him, Nami, and Chopper, and with defending Momonosuke. They were on the ships, and then and Don Quixote pirate showed up, and she started playing games to paint, um, and other shit. Right after that happened, the Big Mom pirates show up. But before that happens, Doflamingo tries to bounce over there. Boom, boom, boom. Brook's like, "Oh fuck! I have to, hold down against this guy. He's one of the seven warlords." But there was no problems because guess what? Sanji showed up, and then they got away. They got to Zoe. When they got to Zoe, they ended up finding these minks that were all fucked up and other things from the Kaido pirates. Yeah, Kaido pirates are still running around doing shit a little bit, but Big Mom pirates show up, and they take Sanji. Say, "Sanji, you gotta marry Pudding." because your daddy wants you to marry Pudding, so he can have more, power in the on the seas and other things. And he's like, damn. But Sanji did it as a move to. He thought he was gonna help out everybody. Luffy doesn't have to fight Big Mom then if I do this, so I'll go with them. But it wasn't like that because Luffy ended up getting to the island after he defeated Doflamingo, and then Brook was a part of that group that went to Whole Cake Island, and he had cool. And this is the thing that was cool about Brook. They got there and he started looking for the poneglyph etching because they needed 4 row poneglyphs to find. No, to find Laugh Tale. They need the 4 red ones, and he got etchings of it, like basically a copy of it. And Big Mom ended up finding him. She's like, "Damn, boy, you trying to steal my shit?" And he's like, "Hold on now, you're actually a young girl to me. Yeah, I'm actually your elder." And he started fighting against her like, and he was no, and he was. he, and he was, holding his ground for a little bit of time until she started busting out like real fucking moves with her devil fruit, and he was getting burned and shocked, and he was like, "Damn." And then she took him into her room, and then Chopper was like, "Brooke, you have to get out of there. We got Luffy and Sanji, and now we have to like fuck out of here." They got out of there. Then he witnessed Pedro die, and he was upset. When he was fighting against Big Mom pirates and shit to get away, just like everybody else. They had Kane to get Sanji, and Sanji was gonna get got, right? But here's the thing: Luffy had to fight against Katakuri. He was fighting against Katakuri. They broke all the Brook was sent to break all the windows or all the mirrors, so that Katakuri couldn't jump out. And after he defeats Luffy or whatever, or he just does it and he tries to do whatever. But Luffy was able to defeat Katakuri. It was alright. And they got Sanji and they left towards Wano. And they got towards Wano. Rook then infiltrates Wano as like a guy who knows about like he's calls to the Corazons and other things. He had to save Brook. Brook had to save Robin a little bit from the those guys in the Oniwabanchu, and she was able to get away because of Brook. And then they all met in Curry with not Momonosuke but Kinemon. They had the plans to go out to Onigashima. They were going to raid Onigashima and free Wano from Kaido's clutches and Orochi's clutches. It's like they did that, and nope, they did that, and then um, what happened was the next day they went to Onigashima. Well, not the next day, but a couple days later they went and they raided Onigashima. And they did that. Brook was fighting alongside Robin. Brook and Robin came to Sanji's aid because Black Maria was playing games. And Brook was, fighting off the, fodder basically when he was, in Wano. That's what he did. He was fighting against the weaker animals, giving Robin support. She was able to defeat Black Maria, and then CP9 was on their dick, or CP0, my bad. And they were like able to handle those niggas too. They were like, CP0 is finding your dick, and she's like, yeah, we'll have to like stay the fuck away from these guys. They're probably finding my dick because of who I am. He said, yeah, I'll defend you and stuff too because you're a girl and stuff. And she said, yeah. And we'll have to wait for Luffy to, defeat Kaido and then get the fuck out of here. Because we don't need these motherfuckers playing games too. And they had to, do that. Luffy defeated Kaido, and then Brook was, he got his bounty upped a little bit. I don't remember. I think he got like 300 or 400, something like that. Then he gets to Egghead, and that's where it's at right now. Brook is just, the musician, but he's also a secondary swordsman. So he is important to the crew. Um, he brings some like wisdom too, that's needed. I guess he's the oldest member of the crew. He offers like good support. That's the thing that Brook does the best. Like secondary swordsman and musician. And he can also run on water, so he's cool. But be cool on the corner because that was the story of Brook.